The fluorescent lights of the waiting room hummed a monotonous tune, casting a sterile glow over the four candidates seated in isolation from each other. Jack, with his sharp jawline and keen eyes, tapped his foot impatiently. Beside him, Tom, a man of fewer words but deeper thoughts, scanned the room with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. Across from them, Priya, whose gaze often drifted to the digital clock on the wall, fidgeted with a silver pen. Her mind raced with possibilities, each more fantastical than the last. Nadia, sitting upright, projected an aura of calmness, but her eyes, quick and observant, missed nothing. They were an eclectic group, each drawn to this mysterious job offer from NovaTech Industries, a titan in the world of futuristic innovation. The job description had been vague, promising a role pivotal to the company's next groundbreaking project, and yet revealing nothing concrete. An hour had passed since the appointed time, and the initial patience had begun to wane. Jack cleared his throat, breaking the silence. "Has anyone actually seen a person since we got here? It's like we're in a ghost facility." Tom nodded slowly. "Something's off. I've been to plenty of job interviews, but this..." His voice trailed off as he looked around the stark room. Priya interjected, her voice tinged with a mix of excitement and anxiety. "Maybe it's a test, testing our patience or how we handle uncertainty." Nadia, who had been quietly observing her fellow candidates, finally spoke. "Or perhaps the real interview is happening right now and we don't even know it, observing how we interact, react, cope." Their theories hung in the air, mingling with the sterile scent of the room. The digital clock ticked on, each second stretching longer than the last. Jack, unable to stay seated any longer, stood up and paced. "I'm going to see if I can find someone. This is ridiculous." Jack's patience had reached its end. He strode towards the door they had entered through, his hand reaching for the handle. To his surprise, it turned easily, swinging open to reveal another identical waiting room, empty and as lifeless as their own. He stepped back, a mix of confusion and frustration on his face. "This makes no sense," he muttered, returning to his seat. Nadia, her eyes narrowing, said, "It seems we're part of a larger puzzle. Maybe this is all a psychological assessment." Tom, rubbing his chin thoughtfully, added, "Or an experiment. NovaTech is known for unconventional methods. We could be lab rats in a social study." Priya, who had been quiet, suddenly spoke up, her voice steady. "Let's use this time. If this is some sort of test, maybe they want to see how we interact, solve problems, or handle stress." Jack sighed. "All right, Priya, what do you suggest?" "We talk. Share our backgrounds, why we're here, what we think this job is about. It could give us insight, or at least pass the time." The group reluctantly agreed, beginning to share pieces of their lives. Jack, a former military officer, was seeking a new challenge after years of disciplined service. Tom, a gifted software engineer, was intrigued by the promise of working on cutting-edge technology. Priya, with a degree in astrophysics, was fascinated by the prospect of working for a company at the forefront of space exploration. Nadia, a bioengineer, had been enticed by the potential for groundbreaking research in her field. As they talked, an unspoken bond began to form. Their diverse backgrounds and skills complemented each other, and slowly the tension in the room eased. They began to speculate about the nature of the job, each theory more elaborate than the last. Hours passed, and the waiting room became a space of lively discussion, laughter, and even heated debate. They dissected every piece of information they had about NovaTech, brainstormed what the project could be, and even delved into personal philosophies and beliefs. Yet, as the clock continued its relentless march, the initial camaraderie gave way to a growing sense of unease. The door remained their only exit, but it only led to an empty replica of their own room. As night seemed to fall, the lights dimming to a soft twilight hue, the reality of their situation settled in. They were trapped, not just physically, but within a web of uncertainty and unanswered questions. Tom, looking around the dim room, voiced the question on everyone's mind. What if they never come? What if we're here indefinitely? The question lingered in the air, heavier than the silence it interrupted. They were four strangers brought together by chance, united by a shared ordeal, facing an unknown future in the mysterious confines of NovaTech. In the soft twilight of the waiting room, the sense of unease was palpable. Tom's question about the possibility of being trapped indefinitely hung heavily in the air. The group fell silent, each lost in their own thoughts, contemplating the bizarre situation they found themselves in. It was Nadia who finally broke the silence. We can't just sit here and wait for something to happen. We need to take some action, find out more about this place and why we're here. Priya nodded in agreement. We've already established that the door leads to another room identical to this one. Maybe there's something we missed, a clue or a way out. Jack stood up, his military training kicking in. We need a plan. If we're going to explore, we should do it methodically. Check every detail, every corner. Tom added, we should also keep track of our path. If this place is a maze of sorts, we can't afford to get lost. With a newfound sense of purpose, they gathered their belongings and approached the door once more. Jack led the way, opening the door to the next room. As before, it was an exact replica of the one they had just left, down to the placement of the chairs and the sterile scent in the air. Methodically, they began their search. They examined the walls for any hidden panels or buttons, checked the chairs for anything unusual, and even inspected the fluorescent lights overhead. Each room led to another, creating a seemingly endless loop of identical rooms. As they progressed, Priya took notes on a small notepad she had with her, marking their path and any observations. Nadia suggested they try different configurations of opening and closing the doors, in case it triggered something. Hours passed, and their initial determination began to wane, as room after room revealed nothing new. The surreal nature of their situation was taking its toll, a mix of frustration and fatigue setting in. Finally, after what seemed like the 10th identical room, Tom stopped. This is getting us nowhere. It's like a twisted puzzle with no solution. Jack, leaning against a wall, sighed deeply. We're missing something. There has to be a reason for all this. It was then that Nadia, who had been quietly inspecting the frame of the door they had just come through, called out, "Wait, look at this." She pointed to a small, almost imperceptible inscription on the doorframe, a series of numbers and letters. They gathered around, examining the find. It could be a code or a clue, Priya suggested, her fatigue momentarily forgotten. Jack nodded. Let's note it down. Maybe it's a sequence and we'll find more in the other rooms. Renewed by this small discovery, they continued their meticulous search, now with a keener eye. Each room they entered, they inspected the doorframe, finding similar inscriptions, each different from the last. As they compiled the sequences, trying to decipher them, the mystery deepened. It was clear now that they were part of something much larger and more complex than a simple job interview. They were in the midst of a puzzle that challenged not just their intellect, but their resilience and their ability to work together under extraordinary circumstances. With the discovery of the inscriptions, the group's dynamics shifted. They moved with a purpose, each room's inspection thorough and systematic. The list of codes grew, each set of characters meticulously noted by Priya in her notepad. As they worked, theories about the nature of the codes and their purpose began to form. Jack considered the possibility of a complex locking mechanism for an exit or a hidden room. Nadia suggested they might be part of an algorithm or a sequence key for a larger puzzle. Tom, ever the pragmatist, kept them focused. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We need to collect all the data we can before jumping to conclusions. Hours turned into what felt like days, the only measure of time being the unchanging artificial light of the rooms. Fatigue began to set in, but the drive to uncover the mystery of their situation kept them going. Finally, after what seemed like an endless sequence of rooms, they found something different. a room with a large screen on one of the walls, currently blank, and a console with a keyboard beneath it. "This has to be it," Priya said, her voice tinged with a mix of excitement and apprehension. Jack approached the console, examining it. "Looks like we're meant to input something here. Maybe those codes?" They gathered around the console, pooling their thoughts on how to proceed. Nadia suggested inputting the codes in the order they found them, while Tom thought they might need to decipher a message or a pattern within the codes first. After some deliberation, they decided to try inputting the codes sequentially. Jack took the lead, carefully typing in the characters from Priya's notes. The others watched the screen intently, half expecting something dramatic to happen. Upon entering the last code, the screen flickered to life, displaying a simple yet elegant interface with the words, "Project Labyrinth, Phase 1. Complete. Please proceed to Phase 2.